ConcreteJungle is a community project supported by Green Room 136. Looking for awesome bags for your urban carry? Check out greenroom136.com for urban bags designed and handmade in Malaysia. greenroom136.com. Music for this podcast is courtesy of Guitar Wizard Samad. Buy his album at asamad.bandcamp.com. Hi, welcome to the show. Today we have Charles Wong of Tetap Tiara. He's going to be sharing with us his new concept called Pop, which is a retail hotel. But before we begin, welcome to the show, Charles.
Thank you.
Before we begin, let's talk a little bit about yourself. Let's talk about your background and where you come from and how you transformed the idea of Pop.
Very boring background. I studied finance, came back, went into the corporate side, did a couple of years, and then went into family business, and that's pretty much it, you know.
Has it always been in finance, or did you branch out into any other aspect?
No, I mean, there's always been a very big interest for business in my blood, you know. Even when I was young, you know, I put together like shows, get sponsors, variety shows. That was back in the UK. It's always been in me to try to organize people, to manage people, to do things, raise some money for charity. It's always been enjoyed doing that. So, and then the opportunity came, of course, when we started development for property development, which is what my family business are into, and we did Jaya One, and then we outlined a master plan. So. The school in which house Pop, school which is the educational centric shopping center, Pop is also in there, and Pop is a retail hotel, as you clearly mentioned. So these are just all part of a master plan that's based on certain key pillars that we developed, where in order to project a brand, we needed to develop these key pillars to support. So if you look at Jaya One as a whole, we have PJ Live Arts, which is focusing on the arts. You have the school now, which is focusing on education. Then there's Pop, which is focused on entrepreneur. And at some point we will start working on the F&B. And all this is linked to the idea of creativity, innovations. Riding on the large population of offices that we have here, so we've been kind of observing, and so we can't develop these key pillars where we want to be seen as be able to provide facilities, spaces where we could attract, these sort of activities and users to come in and use. So that's what we created. So Pop is essentially. Something that we've thought of for a very long time, but not in a retail sense. It was, we had thought in the past about, part of PJ Live Arts would develop incubational programs for the arts, and then we thought of, co-shared working office spaces for the IT, creative side. So it was based on that, and then we started running the markets, for about 2 years. It was very successful. We've been doing that, and every time we do that, we get an average of 3 to 5,000 people visiting the markets at Jaya One. It happens once every 2 months. And I saw something there. I'm seeing the traders and how they work and how they operate. So that suddenly, that's when I had that idea for Pop, which, my wife also does a lot of online shopping. Through her I see some of the challenges as well from a customer point of view. So it's just trying to create a platform, a physical platform, where we feel that the market could meet both the consumers, but also the entrepreneurs. But beyond that, I would wish that it becomes a space where entrepreneurs will meet other entrepreneurs, and so that they would meet and discuss and maybe find new ventures, explore new opportunities. So these are sort of some of the very early on vision that we had. And as a shopping center or as a space, we just have to put the facility together to enable and this process to happen. So that's basically how it happened.
So Markets is a bazaar.
Yeah.
And it's safe to say it's the preconception of pop.
Very much so, yeah.
Right? The precursor of pop.
Yeah.
Through the 2 years of running Markets, what do you manage to see any development in terms of the maker space of Malaysia? What was it like earlier during the early first year of Markets, and then where it is right now?
To be honest, right, until we actually worked with some freeform and tongue-in-cheek. Prior to that, there were several attempts to do a Markets, and it failed.
What were the challenges that led to the failure?
The biggest challenge was two things: the vendors themselves, which represents the product, and the ability to communicate and raise the awareness of when the market would happen. So people out there didn't know. So getting the word out there was extremely challenging. So when we partnered with Tongue-in-Cheek and Freeform, who are the people who also organize Urbanscapes, and what we had was we developed an exclusive sort of Markets with them, because they've been traveling around, and they had their own version of Markets. But what they wanted was a permanent space where they could have the Markets, once every 2 months. So the idea was to program it, to build a calendar so that people would remember without having to constantly refer back to websites or Facebook or to be notified that around this time that the Markets would come back. So we wanted to fix a program within the calendar. And obviously with them they already had quite a substantial following of vendors. What they needed was the space. It was then I realized that we're not in the business to try and create product. We're in the business of building platforms, because ultimately we cannot avoid that we're in the real estate business. But what we have is a luxury to build platforms, create platforms, and working very closely with all this people like the initial people like Freeform and Tongue-in-Cheek, working with them and understanding how could we accommodate, understanding the business in terms of how it works. So that's really how it all happened, and then watching the Markets as it develops, and then eavesdropping on conversations during the day, and you start to get a sense of it worked, and it still works to this day. But could we do more? Could we do better? Then that was a question that I asked. So it was then you realize this is the entrepreneur field. This is where people come out and would like to test ideas, and these are people who have 9-to-5 jobs, like anyone else out there, but they all have some ideas they'd like to test.
They have some passion and some experiences they want to.
And ultimately, a lot of curiosity. I think they would like to just try and experiment things.
What were the earlier vendors like? And has there been any progress from the early set?
The issue was a lot of the earlier vendors that they weren't entrepreneurs, but they were considerably, they weren't experimentative type vendors. They were already established traders, where they had a shop, or they had already a distribution line. They were distributors themselves, and so the Markets, way back, it was called Bazaar back then, was just another distributional point. So they weren't those type of entrepreneurs. What we saw in the subsequent the Markets that we had at Jaya One and then Pop, they were already I wouldn't say successful businesses. They had a business going, and they were already distributors, distributing here and there.
Majority of them are more of traders rather than makers.
So they weren't actually there for any experimentation. They were there to sell. They were there to make sales, to increase sales volume. And they saw the bazaar was another another opportunity. And they're no different from most of the markets or bazaars that you see in and around, whether it's a Pasar Malam or whether it's markets and bazaars in other shopping center areas. Can't say any names, but I think we know who they are. These guys are there because they actually have shops, they have businesses elsewhere. So that's just another area to just
spike their sales.
Yeah, to improve sales. It's not really an area where they get a chance to experiment. There's no actually real creation in there, or creativity or innovative there. There's no. It won't lead to additional sourcing. Because they understand what the market needs and wants, and they are prepared to just offer what is I would deem norm in terms of retail merchandise.
So when was it that you actually started to see a divergence from traders to makers?
When we developed markets with Freeform, and because they already had with them a lot of online business,
right.
Entrepreneurs who were only available online, and it was just really amazing watching these people coming in, whether it was food, cakes, fashion, or stationeries, handmade household, accessories. It was just fun watching them. Lots of, just from the point they set up, they're getting. Obviously, everyone in there is volunteering. It could be their brothers, sisters, girlfriend, boyfriends, friends, cousins, and they will all be there, enjoying the setting up process, and just can't wait for the customers to come in, and then it's just fun watching that whole process, and then how just them interfacing with the customers and them explaining the products in a very passionate way. That whole sort of experience excited me a lot. As a businessman, I can really appreciate that. I mean, I myself go through. I have so many ideas in my head, but yeah, I have a commitment in terms of what I do for my business. But I will always say, all right, when I'm a bit older and when I have time, I would like to try some of these ideas, So, and I appreciate and sympathize, what they are going through, and I'm sure in the back of their mind it says, oh, it happens once every 2 months. It's enjoyable. It's fun. And there's always this, back in the mind, thought that it seems to work. Should I make take the next step?
Right.
And there's always in the back of their mind, because the customer is saying, you should do this, and everyone's saying, friends, you should do this, but should I trade my stable sort of employment, and I've got stable life, should I trade and take that risk? Should I take that next step? And if I do, where do I go? How do I begin? So yeah, it's quite scary, I think.
You're talking from the perspective of a vendor?
Yeah, definitely. It is quite scary to take that next step. And then you're gonna have to end up worrying about lots of things that any businesses will worry about. So how do you overcome those? So Pop basically took all that and said, okay, how do we build this platform? How do we then add the facilities on in order to help, to assist, to get this startup, get all these entrepreneurs going? So the retail hotel essentially does that. At the moment, on a very simple level. There's still a lot of layers that needs to be filled. Pop is still very new, but at the very least, it does that. Still a lot to do, but I think in many sense we've set up to achieve what we have to achieve. Now it's just like any business, it's a brand new service, a brand new product. How do we start to build the layers? And really, when I mean layers, is every aspect of the business, from the look and feel. From if you see the retail hotel as a product, how do we further enrich it? How do we further then there comes the idea of marketing, communications. How do we start to communicate Pop in the minds of the consumer, but also in the minds of the vendors? How do we reach out? Then there's obviously, you still have your HR, operations, the usual, all those things that, that are still being massaged at the moment to try to get those sort of intricate mechanics to get them all turned in the right way. So I would see, yeah, definitely for the foreseeable next 3 months, it's just a lot of value engineering or re-engineering, going back into pop, looking at all the little mechanical moving parts, and just fine-tuning them, making sure that they start synchronizing. So that's that, and at least physically we've got them up. So now it's just going through that process, like any other business will have to go through.
Okay, so let's go deep into pop as a concept, right? The concept of retail hotel. Can you explain a little bit more in detail? I'm sure there's a lot of audiences out there who one is unheard of, do not understand what the concept of retail hotel is all about. And the others will be those who are makers who have no clue what the potentials are pop is to them.
All right. When we started, like I said, we wanted to do something with entrepreneurs. We're talking about startups, anyone that has an idea. And the hotel bit was just something that most of us are very familiar with, the idea of staying in a hotel. Whether it is a budget hotel or it is a 5-star hotel, the basic thing that hotels does that there's always that sense of comfort, sense of peace of mind that with hotels. Because the only time you stay in a hotel is when you travel, right? And you're in a foreign country and you're in foreign places. And your hotel is where you find your comfort. It's when, I'm here. I have a night just to lay down, to sleep, to wash, to clean, to rest. And the people in the hotel are supposed to help you kind of get you familiar with your surrounding, where to eat, where to go. So that's what a hotel does. It's that comfort blanket that we always find in our travels. And I like that part of the experience. If you look at budget hotels, it's a place where a lot of backpackers meet as well. You see the idea of what a hotel does?
It's meeting tent.
Yeah, it does that. And I find that very, I don't know, it just feels comfortable for me. It's something like a comfort blanket or security blanket to any child. I feel that, and I wanted to emulate that. And so that's how we started Pop, was to link the idea of being a retail hotel to the entrepreneurs. If we could provide that for these entrepreneurs, I think we are definitely step in the right direction. So, and just like a hotel, you come and stay, you have to go through a process, and the hotel will have operational issues, and the customers will complain, and the aircon doesn't work, or I can't find your place. Where is it? It's off this street, down this lane, and then we're there. Like a hotel, it does that. It has to go through that process. But it's in a sense conceptually was how, very much inspired by the markets, very much inspired by watching, sort of entrepreneurs doing their trade, and recognizing their needs, and say, okay, let's try and build a hotel for them. All right, and that's how it began. And we found it was a very unique proposition. I mean, it's not that it's never been done before. I mean, it happens everywhere. May not be in an organized way. It can happen on a very small level. It can happen on a very big level. Some other countries are started out by creative people. A couple of people started it, and then the trend just began. And before you know it, they will take up like a whole large district area. So it's like always started by a couple of people, and then it just grew and grew and grew. And then you have very small formats of such spaces, just that they not as organized or may not be as well facilitated. So Pop is supposedly much more organized, better facilities. So just like hotels,
So what are the facilities do you offer to vendors?
At this point in time, you see a lot of our facilities lies in the administrators. The idea is to take away, the first step that we thought of was, aside from the physical space, obviously you need your thermal comfort that you need to build in for their customers. But one of the things we didn't want to develop was taking away the administrative burden and the operational burden. And that was the immediate first step we need to develop. Before even thinking about marketing, the product needs to have that, because that is essential to have. So that was the first thing, when we've already introduced that in. So that's great. So yeah, that was the first essential ingredient that we saw, was the operation and administrative burden.
Someone to be there, someone to
be there,
to make the sale,
yeah,
to handle the customer,
handle customers, to handle money for them, to to not let them worry about all these little things that you would normally have to worry, setting up and all that, all these things that you would normally have to do. So we felt that we managed to achieve that, at least, at the very least. So that is an essential ingredient.
And what was how do you come across the whole idea of marketing this concept to entrepreneurs? Consider the fact that being a maker, for myself, being a maker, the first thing that came to my mind is, if I know how to make something, if I have the skill to make something, I just need to post them online to sell. So what Pop provides a whole new platform entirely. Goes beyond online. Do you see a lot of people, or do you see any entrepreneurs or any vendors who feels that online is better than retail?
I don't think online is better than retail, or retail is better than online. And I've been attending a lot of conferences with shopping centers, and everyone has been, there's a lot of subject raised about online and how it impact retail sales. I personally think that you need a little bit of both. They need to work together, whether it's a digital campaign or whether it is an online sales platform. All this needs to work together. It's just, at some point, I think entrepreneurs will just have to decide for themselves which one would they rather focus on. And then sometimes you still need that physical presence. For example, you may be decided that, okay, my business is purely online based, so I work from home and I will, basically sell through online. But sometimes it doesn't hurt for you to have a physical presence in a space for a week. And that's where you tell all your fans out there and say, I'll be there for a week. Come and meet me. Come and meet the products, the maker, as you call it. And people need that. People need to know sometimes the face behind the business, the face behind any product. And again, because of the flexible rental policies that Pop does, it allows that to happen. The question then is, as a maker or as an entrepreneur, will you choose to adopt the physical space as what Pop provides you as a part of the strategy in your business for growth? You don't have to abandon your online strategy if it works for you. But will you choose Pop to further enhance that business strategy, that business growth strategy? So there's no right and wrong in business. For whatever reasons, and we know business is fluid and it moves, it changes. So businesses will just have to keep up with the changing environment. And then will Pop become a temporary strategy that you can adopt in order to re-maneuver your business a little bit, because for whatever reasons, maybe you find that the sales is dropping. Why is that so? Will you want to use Pop and say, let's set something up there so that I can kind of call my previous customer to come and have a look and get a chance to talk to them, which you won't be able to do so online. But just to use it as a short period of time to just engage with the customers and find out what more I can do. Is my product getting stale? You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So, or one would say, online is going down, but for whatever reasons, my product is moving in Pop. Then you may say, okay, I'm going to focus more in Pop, but I will still need my online as a means to enhance whatever it is. So I think it's one of those things, a combination that one has to use very carefully and thoughtfully think about that strategy. There is no one right platform for one business throughout its life. You need to constantly re-explore, these platforms and these markets. How will you get yourself out there? It's constantly changing.
That's a very good point. I mean, for myself, to share a little bit about my experience as a maker, right? During the early days, this is pre-pop.
Yeah.
Actually, can't say pre-pop because pop has been a concept that's been around for such a long time.
Yeah.
Now, my biggest challenge as a maker is that, well, I make bags, and my bags are not cheap.
Yeah.
They're not cheap simply because I focus a lot on quality,
right,
as a core competency of the product.
Right.
So the biggest challenge is getting customers to purchase the goods online.
Yeah.
Because if you're talking about bags, one of the things they say is, I want to see what's the capacity of the bags before I can decide whether it's what size I need to buy. But even with videos, there's still the nagging feeling of wanting to come and touch and hold the product before they commit.
Correct.
And as a small-time startup, it's difficult for us to say, okay, let's just open up a shop at Lee Valley and that's it,
Yeah.
It's not that simple. It's all about having to think about human resource, having to think about renovations.
Yeah, the entry cost is extremely high.
Yeah. Right, so which is the reason why online has been such a big proponent to the business, but online has its challenges.
It does have its challenges, yeah.
So the early days was to set up shop at markets, right? So that creates a platform that people within this vicinity is able to come over to trial, to see the product, and then commit and buy it on the spot. But the problem with markets is that it's sporadic.
Yeah.
Right, so you have to wait for 2 months, 3 months, and then go in for the bang. And if that one day you cannot capture back whatever it is that you need to survive for the next couple of months, you're screwed.
Yeah, precisely.
So when pop came into the picture, it was, to me, a godsend.
Yeah.
Not only to myself, but to a few other makers, such as, say, for example, Bacon Roll, who makes furnitures out of scraps that you find out on the streets, upcycling. He has the challenge of a physical space, and he needs a big chunk of space actually showcase his furniture because these are really chunky products. Pop gives us that opportunity to say, we don't have to worry about human resource because it's all settled. There are salespeople that's already been in place. Security is in place. Air conditioning is in place. The atmosphere, the environment is in place, and the marketing is in place. All we need to do is to just have our goods there.
Move in, and start.
Fix up our fixture, put in our goods, and keep track, and then use Facebook and push it like hell. Get the people to come not only to the online store but also to the retail store to see it. And I've, as a maker, I've been able to see changes. Diversions from online sales to retail sales. In this case, my store at Pop.
And I'm sure it's your online sales will always be there.
Oh yeah, it
because
will.
it's a way.
It's convenience.
It's
24/7.
Yeah. So they work hand in hand. You would just have to monitor over time, and you think and something will happen, and you go, okay, it's time to do this and do that. So. But isn't that the fun thing about business? It's just seeking out opportunities in terms of how you could further enhance your business growth strategies. And that's what I love most about it. And I'm sure all the most of the people who are watching this are feeling that is that you start with a lot of passion, a lot of excitement, and then you also have a lot of anxiety as well. And that adrenaline, it kind of keeps you pumping, keeps you moving. You always, and that I think is what we're addicted to. I think.
Most definitely, it is an addiction.
It is an addiction.
Like coffee.
Yeah.
Okay, so in terms of business vendors, right? How far would you go? Would you just look in terms of makers, in terms of just traders, or would you go even to the scale of artists and musicians and filmmakers? Would these individuals have a space at Pop?
There are no rules. It's just like hotels. So hotels, apart from they may say, don't bring durians in. Some things are clear no, like, don't sell coffins.
Right.
All right. Some things are clear no.
Or pirated DVD.
Yeah, some things are clear no. But generally speaking, we don't discriminate in terms of who will come, as long as it provides it gives a positive image to the space, and as much as we would like to put in that catalyst to try and see Pop grow, and I will imagine after a while, once we incubate this and successfully incubated Pop to a recognized level, I would very much imagine the vendors will start in a very much way managing the space for Pop, because we no longer have to like departmental stores or high street fashion shops or any of such. We'll constantly have to figure out and be very watchful on the next trend. But in most cases, the trends are always set by the people who design the clothes. In this case, the same thing. I think the great thing about Pop is we don't have to think about setting up the trend, because eventually it is the vendors who will set the trend. What is the next thing that people would want? So in many sense, it does two things. We put all this sort of features in to attract these vendors to come. But at the same time, they are also kind of setting the trend for us. And all we need to do is, stay tuned to what's actually happening and just keep communicating that out. And they're also communicating as well. So it's.
Okay. What were the top 3 things would you recommend early makers to think about before they come into Pop? If you come across someone who say, I've got this thing about making something, and what were the top 3 things, top 3 advice you give this individual?
Well, the first thing is, I won't call it research, but you talk to people about it and get a sense of whether there is a demand for whatever it is you're doing. That's step 1. Step 2 is you need to then test to see that are you meeting those expectations. All right. And once I think you pass step 2, then step 3 is I'm not talking about getting it to become a successful business. This is just right from the very early beginning. And step 3 is you gotta start thinking about getting your awareness out there about that. Then it means you're not just selling it to your friends anymore. So you're selling it to people outside, people who don't know you, which means you are responsible. So responsibility comes in. The level of being held accountable comes in. So until you reach step 2, it's still fine, because after step 2, you're still just selling it to your friends, your relatives. That's fine, which is what more business happens. But then once you put yourself in that public arena, then it's entirely different. That's when the pressure sets in. That's when people say your stuff is just not good enough, or it's great, but I want it in this color or this or that. Because that's the public arena. That's what they don't care.
And that's the only way one can progress from.
And that's the only way. There's no other way.
From generation 1 of products to generation 2 and so on and so forth. And that's where Pop comes into the picture, because you provide that platform.
It's all about that phase of any ideas. So I will wish them the best of luck if they have successfully built on the business and say that I'm now confident and ready to have my own retail shop. And most likely some of them will need, if they become that successful, because they realize that their brand have outgrown Pop. I need my own very strong brand identity, where I want a shop that is entirely my brand identity. I want to do more than just talk to my customers. I want them to come into my store and experience my product in the likes of no other store can do. And when that happens, I suppose, you can then consider a full-time retail store. Or you can change the format of your store in Pop and make it take up a little bit more space, but do put in a bit more in terms of the renovation, do an actual pop-up experience where you work with very interesting materials, but literally you could build a roof over within the space. Right now, as you know, vendors are just displaying things, but you could technically build, which is also the next phase of pop. I think you've got another question for me is, where is pop going to? But that'll be, probably save that for that part when you ask me. But yeah, it's about you could technically use. I think like any business, once you grow, a brand is a natural extension of the creator, the maker, as you call it. And at some point, just like a child who reaches teenagers, once that child is a teenager, he wants to be known for his individualistic character, his identity, what he wears and whatnot. Still, yeah, he may be influenced by what's going on and what his peers are wearing. But the fact that, business is the same. You will get to a level where you need to have a very strong identity, because number one, you're proud of what you're doing, so you want people to really recognize you for who you are, or at least the brand anyway. And that's when there's another, game-changing place happens in the business. And I would say that would be, step 4 or 5, where you feel like, I need to really get my brand out there and say, and be recognized.
Okay, so last question. Where do you see pop right now? Zero or hero, and what is progression going to be like for the next version of pop?
Pop, I would say, in a very large scale, is actually still zero. I think what we have is we've just, as I said earlier, we put together all the essential facilities, in there. Pop needs to grow. Not in terms of like the market, not in terms of the awareness. And interestingly enough, I had this kind of debate with my team. They were asking me about, maybe it's time to do some A&P and think about marketing and all that. And I said, no. I said, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do any A&P. We're not going to spend money on marketing. We are going to build the next layer of further enhancing pop as a product. Because I don't think the product is ready to be marketed. So I feel what the product needs to do is fully enhanced. And how do we do that? I think the next step really is, as a space, I think we need to work harder to try and to improve the ambience, the environment, the experience. But then I realized that as much of additional ID I could do, the thrust of the experience comes from the vendors. So I thought to myself, we must think about how do we work closer with vendors instead of further helping them to express their store. If they express their store even better, then pop benefits from that. Because pop is nothing without its vendors.
Yeah.
So
it's an empty shell.
It's an empty shell. If I put X dollars into the ID, yeah, it will make it look good, but the vendor stays the same. The ID does not engage with customers. The vendors do. The products do. So the next phase strategy I'm thinking essentially is to start with that process. How do we work with certain vendors and say, let's re-express the stores and make the vendors take center stage. Now I figured once you start doing that, then the product gets enhanced, the experience gets enhanced. Yeah, there's still some basic things we need to get in, like for example, we need to work in more lighting to just brighten up to get that feel, and get the sound systems to go in. And these are still the basic hardware we still need to kind of put in place. And those are not difficult, but to have a customer walk in and feel that experience in terms of how I envision it to have, I feel that should be us working with the vendors to do that, rather than we trying to do that entirely on our own. So that is my next phase in the strategy, where we would like to co-invest with the vendors to see how we could further help them express where I want to work with them and you know, Google image and see, oh, I like that. That looks really cool. How could we re-explore and say, so I'm gonna get my ID team together. You know, I haven't debriefed them yet, but I'll start doing that at the Chinese New Year. Get my ID team together and say, let's meet up with some of the vendors and say, let's re-express your store. Let's make it interesting.
Great. As a pork vendor, I look forward to that.
Yeah. So that is that process, and then the next thing, obviously, we need to start again. I think we need a bit more closer working relationship with the vendor. So to me, it's about that. And the next thing really is one of the things that we've done with Pop is, although we've provided the convenience services, we kind of also sucked the fun out of it. The fun was if you came to the markets and shop, you were able to talk to the owners of the business.
Yes.
Now you don't really get to do that.
Yeah.
So I'm worried that if I market Pop now and people come, they go that, you know, where are the makers? Where are the owners? You know, the stuff that we have there can represent basic information. Beyond, you know, in terms of really knowing the intricate details of how this is made and why it took so long and how much hard work I put into putting this onto the shelf.
A maker's day.
Yeah. So what we need is something like that. We need to create regular sessions, whether it's once a week or once every fortnight, where we need the makers to come in. And then we just have to wrap around it. It's almost like an event by itself, a fortnightly event, where the customers will come and then they can talk to them again. So I feel it's about the next thing is enhancing Pop in that manner in terms of the relationship bit, you know, the expression bit. And I think once we get those, then we can market.
The ecosystem. Once you have the ecosystem in
Correct.
place, you have the whole full, you know, Pop as a
Exactly.
full-blown product. Then it makes more compelling sense to advertise.
So what I'm doing is, you know, I'll discuss with my team and say, look, we've got to look at all our list of vendors in Pop at the moment, and we should start by sales performance. We should start by sales performance because it's obvious that it's either because the vendor is working harder to push their sales online, that's why they're doing more sales here, or simply because their product works here. So we figured we use sales performance as a means to start picking out vendors where we would like to work with to help them re-express their stores. And to be honest, not every vendor would be keen. There are some vendors who will probably say, you know, I don't need this. I'm fine on my own, you know. So we rather work with those who are keen, who want to take this opportunity. So we would like to, because instead of me just spending blindly money on marketing, dollar and cents going down the drain, it should go back to the product. The product is the vendors.
Yes.
Let's co-invest in that. And I think once those vendors successfully re-express themselves in a very unique and creative way, then the idea of pop-up stores or pop-up retailing will slowly come to life. So when people come in, it's because they like that experience. You know, when people buy something, it's not often, and this is how retailing works. It's very different from online. Online is people shop with an idea of roughly what they need. I need a bag, I need clothes, I need shoes. So online sort of sales are very much like a library. You know, there are search engines, you know, there's someone you can go to a library and can help you what kind of books you're looking for. You don't browse, you know, in that sense, because you have an idea of roughly what you're seeking out, and you kind of go to those places to look. But retailing is very different. Physical retailing is entirely, you know, the psychology behind the buying habits are quite different. So there's a lot of impromptu buying that goes in as well. So, and the largest part of shopping, where most people miss out, and some of the vendors are kind of missing that out, and also partly Pop as well, we're also missing that, is the experience. When we go out to eat, when we go out to shop, it's all about buying that experience. When I buy a product, and let's say the product is $50, a lot of time consumers value the $50 not just based on the cost of what they perceive the cost it is and how much profit you're making. So the cost plus profit is $50. What it is that value is also They will also look at the overall experience while they are buying this product, while they are selecting this product, while they, as they enter into a shop, being attended to, having this conversation with the shop assistant. And if the whole process is very pleasant, that 50 ringgit in their mind is already worth more than 50 ringgit. Because what they had was they managed to kill some time, and that time was well spent.
Because they learn something.
Right? They could learn something in the process of it. And they take this 50 ringgit product and it becomes part of a memento that they take back. Of course, they get to enjoy it. But they're buying an experience. That 50 ringgit is probably worth, 30 minutes, 20 minutes of time spent enjoying that experience. No different from when we're eating. We go out to a restaurant to eat, being served, enjoying good food, enjoying good conversations. And if the bill is 60 ringgit per person, you think that was very much worth it. Or sitting in a coffee place where you have, some artisan coffee place where the coffee is great, the environment is great, but not in a very noisy sort of way. You're still kind of doing your work. You're on your iPad, on your laptop, you're figuring things out. You're paying, $10 or $12 for this coffee. And you walk away and you think, I've just spent 2 hours in there and had my own me time. And that 12 ringgit, definitely worth it. I'll definitely come back next week. So many of the time people don't understand is, the thing about retailing is it's not just a product, whether is it worth it or not. It's the overall experience.
It's the experience, yeah.
So what we want to do the next step is to build that experience, to work with vendors to build that experience. I think that is really important.
Okay. All right. So we're running out of time.
Yeah.
What would be, before we wrap up, do you have anything to plug, or if anyone or any maker is interested to know more about POP, where do they go?
Basically, you go on online. POP's our website, which I can't remember.
Pop.my.
Pop.my is it? So you go onto the website, and basically all the information is there with FAQs there, basic FAQs. There's also a number to call. You can actually speak directly with our manager. Her name is Lorraine, so do give them a call. And the best way is actually come over, have a look at the space, and speak to our staff, our managers directly, and then they can explain to you in detail how that works. But as a start, just go online and have a look.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for your time,
Thank you.
Charles.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.